welcome to yet another episode of The Takedown. I'm Magi, Magirazi, and I am taking you again this week for The Takedown. Today we have a comrade of sorts. Not of sorts, actually a comrade. Yeah. So, but before we get into it, before we start flash demonstrating, let's look back into the week and see what has made it into our headlines. Dem loot. Introducing the Grammy Award reggae artist, award-winning journalist. Award-winning journalist. You are an award-winning journalist. Hopo Chimon. They have no sense of purpose, them loot has been everywhere. Social media is abuzz with them loot. Like there are challenges left, right, and center. And I even jumped onto that train myself, and Vusa Makai did the same thing, and he had this groovy take on it. But yeah, so it's talking about how they are looting they're looting PPE funds, they're looting when it comes to we don't have safe drinking water coming out of our tapes, we don't have it's a lot, everything, they looted everything. So yeah, that's one of the headlines this week. And then we'll talk about what our Ministry of Finance, the finance minister, said. He told us that we're going to have to pay for the vaccine. And I'm like, hey, when you told us that there was a surplus, what was the reason? Why was the reason, Minister? Why tell us there's a surplus and then you turn around and you make us pay for things that we would think the surplus would pay for? Now, I don't have the money. I'm just a comedian. So how much money will I need now for me, my mother, my father, my daughter, my brother, my boyfriend, my husband? And then now we see a tweet. Is this a tweet? What is this? Guys, give me this thing before started. I mean, seriously. Now I've just said the minister says we have to pay for the vaccine, but then now there's a message saying that he's saying that he didn't say that. But then when I'm spelling your citizen, I don't know what to believe now. Which is which? All right, let's go. I'm going to introduce today. Our guest for today is going to be Comrade Mako. Comrade Mako. This one. This hide and go seek character. So yeah, let's go talk to Comrade Mako and we'll talk about this vaccine later on. Back to our guest of the day. Some call him Comrade Mako. The government calls him Makomborero Haruzivishe. If we were in a cartoon, it would be Scooby-Doo. You know, when the bad guys are caught and they're like, I would have gotten away with this if it wasn't for these meddling kids. Hello, Comrade Mako. The meddling youth.
Yeah. Hello, Maggie. How are you?
How are you doing? It's been a busy week for you. I'd like to imagine playing hide and go seek.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah. You know, there's no sweeter thing than knowing Kuti. A sweeter thing, knowing Kuti, a whole government they offer 10,000 police officers, thousands of CIOs, and a whole army is failing to find you. It's a moment of victory.
You must have been the best when you're growing up playing hide and go seek. They would never find you.
Yeah. They would never find me. And but I think we are now escalating because instead of
things are not escalating.
Instead of we are now escalating from hiding. We are now seeking. We now have to seek them because it's too much.
Oh, now you seek for them.
Yeah.
Now you're seeking and they're hiding. Okay.
Yeah,
So this past week has been quite busy for you. There was a flash demo, and when they're writing the news, they're like suspected, like you're suspected that you were present, but did they see you? So were you there?
I was not
The
there.
flash demo that happened at the Ministry of Justice. Hmm?
No, it was my conscience. It was my conscience that was there. It was the young people of
Oh, your
Zimbabwe.
conscience was there.
So I was just but
Okay.
no a mirror. Yeah, I was just but a
Oh,
mirror, mirroring
okay.
the aspirations of young people in Zimbabwe, mirroring the aspirations of Zimbabweans in general, the people of Zimbabwe. That you know, judicial capture must stop. The courts must be there to save public justice for all, not to act at the whims of a few, you know, selfish and few dangerous people who are abusing them. Check how, for example, Alan Moy. To imagine that he's just but a student, barely in his early 20s, but someone who is called a father at some home, a husband by some wife, a father by some children, actually it's their conscience to imprison him for committing absolutely no crime. He committed no crime and everyone knows it. But what is mind-boggling is that we have in the system, because when we speak of the system, people believe that it's some kind of machine which doesn't have emotions, which can't think, but it's made up or enabled by individuals, by people, small people to be specific. If you are to check those magistrates, they also stay in communities. If you are to check the police officers who arrest them, and even the National Prosecuting Authority that is prosecuting, it's quite sad that from all the process from arrest to detention to denial of bail to imprisonment, not even a single one of them is the conscience or the say, guys, this is not good. This guy committed no crime. It's none. Just like even when they arrested Job Sikala and Fatah Maere, it's clear they know that it's not a crime, or the charge they were giving him, it's not a crime in Zimbabwean law. They know that the higher court ruled that it's not a crime, but they actually threw them into prison. Even first they came out with COVID. But these are people who are making decisions. It's not some machine that the system is not some sophisticated machinery that cannot think, that cannot make independent decisions, that cannot. These are willing people, willing enablers. And that's why I was making a strict emphasis on now it's time for the people to seek them and it's time for them to hide, because we now need to escalate, we now need to fight judicial capture, we now need to fight state capture. Because all our problems that we have, it's because of people who are hiding behind captured institutions which are protecting, their criminal activities.
Okay. All right. So these people, Alan Moyo and Job Sika, they were arrested for the crime that they said to have committed. Apparently, there's no law like that in our 2013 constitution.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what you're
Yeah.
fighting for. So what sort of action are we likely to see in your to push for Alan Moyo's release? What can we expect from you? What shenanigans?
What happened in the Ministry of Justice, it was because it's the headquarters, the epicenter. I think it was the most difficult part. We were launching a sustained people's campaign against judicial capture. So if you manage to demonstrate at the headquarters, then I can guarantee you that when you are now cascading, taking it to the streets, to the ghettos, to the growth points, it's much easier and more people will be participating. And like what we did at the Ministry of Justice, our demands were clear. They should free Alan Moyo and all other prisoners of conscience. We know there are many others who are in there. If you check what in the January 2019 people's action against price increases and fuel shortages, we saw hundreds of young people who were arrested. Some are in trials, convicted. Some of them are suffering. Some of them don't even know their names. But there are many of them who are in there, and they need to be freed. So it's now a sustained campaign where we are, number one, educating the people on the cause of their problems, which is primarily state capture, and also on institutions which are captured like the justice system. Well, now it is no longer serving public justice, because in this regard, how can we now continue having trust with our courts, the court of laws, when they consistently or are synonymous with abusing citizens, those that they are supposed to be protecting, those that they are supposed to know, they are supposed to be an equalizer when they are disputes or when
okay, we keep hearing
but
about
when they are
Alan
now
Moyo.
being used as
You know,
tools for oppression.
Okay, so you keep talking about Alan Moyo. To some, Alan Moyo is just but a name. Could you just tell us a bit more about who Alan Moyo is, what's he like, and why you're fighting so hard to have him released?
Alan Moyo, as I said earlier on, is just like I was at the Minister of Justice. Alan Moyo is just but a representative of our generation. His aspirations, which are to, live in a free and fair Zimbabwe where citizens' issues and concerns are heard and addressed. They are the aspirations of every young Zimbabwean. Alan Moyo's a demand of an end to corruption but the demands of every Zimbabwean. So Alan Moyo being in prison, he may be there physically, but he is also there symbolically, symbolizing the suffering young people in Zimbabwe, symbolizing the aspirations of Zimbabweans in general, that we need a better Zimbabwe, we need better lives, we need to do away with corruption, we need to speak up
so we are all Alan Moyo.
So, and that's why we are all Alan Moyo. And the beauty of it, pane munhu asina moyo
varipo vasina
chese tine moyo. So
pane vamwe vasina moyo. Okay, fine. So back to you. Comrade Mako, when did you become socially aware? Were you always this? Were you always the nuisance, the annoying, the irritating? Okay, to them, not to us, not to Alan Moyo, but to them, to the others.
Right.
Were you always like this? When did you just was one day you're like, you know what? Let me do something.
No, you know what? What really happened was I just grew up. Like when I was a kid, I would just demand, sherbet or sweets from my parents. They would get me. I would simply demand a new school uniform as the new term began, and I would cry till they buy me one. I would cry for new shoes. They would give me. I didn't even know that they would go, to extra lengths to even put the plate of salsa on the table for us. I didn't know everything to do with rent and stuff. I didn't know that school fees is difficult. So I just didn't grow up, become aware that the perfect world, which I thought, it's not what is happening realistically. So at that moment, my first reaction was, of course, to think that no, it can be fixed. Anyone must just do their jobs. So yeah, I think that's how I started joining activism, and to be more broader. It was also issues to do with basics like I grew up. I'm a village boy. I grew up in the village. We would go to school. This like 7 kilometers from home. It was a good life, perfect life. But then when I went for my Form 1, I discovered that I'm the only person who, I have to make new friends because all of my friends there are left behind. Some were actually intelligent, and they also deserve to be at a school like Kukumere, where I went for my O levels, Kukumere High School. But I did not find them. So for me, I thought maybe it's that decision. But later on, I go for holidays. I would discover some of them, like especially the ladies have been married. Some of the guys are cross borders, or they are now into, into mining, informal mining activities and others. But I could see that no, this was not their choice. As I grew up, so even when I went to Victoria High School for A levels, I could see less and less of them detached. When I went to the University of Zimbabwe, and then I realized that no, most of the people who are actually intelligent, who can contribute meaningfully to Zimbabwe's development, who can add value socially and economically to Zimbabwe, are being denied the opportunity because they can't access education. So this was me in first year at the University of Zimbabwe. That's when we started fighting. We knew that back then there used to be grants, academic grants and loans. We started fighting for them. I think that's how I got entangled. Then from there, I believe that it was within my rights. Then the arrests began, the beatings. I think since 2011, when I set my foot, istakakwarana nechikoro takatoti tinotsvaka chikoro. So but patakasvika titi toda chikoro takaona takutorohwa. So it made me more conscious.
In Comrade Mako,
those are my first days. So my first days manje uchiswa mahandcuffs audzichirwa namaika unenge uchitya because is back in the village taiziva kuti ukaiswa mahandcuffs taingonhu akaiswa mahandcuffs taifunga kuti atoconvictiwa ipapo atopiwa sentence atodii because we just see the police coming take someone handcuffs unzi aenda kujail and tichitobva ikoko manje kudzoka kuvillage watova an outcast senzi aichereboy saka anozva the first time ndakatoti sheta I think my first time ndakatogona kukava up but pakazosvika imwe manje kuti zvakazobuda munewspaper nemustudio yosefe vana mbuya vachi vakuti kwewewe tiri kunzwa kuti we hear that you have been suspended from school and you have been arrested. They said, no, it wasn't me. I know we heard it in the news. We saw it in the newspapers. Then I said, no, I've actually been released and reinstated back at school. You know, I just had to cover up because I didn't know how to explain.
Okay.
With time, I knew, and with time and things.
Does it work? No. Do you think this works like when they arrest you, or does it actually push you? Oh, all right, we're gonna do more now.
As in my case and the case of many other comrades, I think it pushed me to do harder, to fight harder, because firstly, I got arrested for, just demanding access to education for all, that no one should be denied an opportunity to access education on campus. We got arrested, got beaten. Then the next thing was, I had to fight for my rights. That I was beaten up. It's not fair. I should not be tortured or treated in such a degrading.
So it was another thing to fight.
Another thing to fight for. Yeah. So the more they arrested me, was the more I felt that I had to fight.
The more reasons you saw to fight.
Yeah, so they got bigger and bigger, and then I got more conscious and more aware that if maybe we did not succeed because we were just 10 when we demonstrated, maybe let's go and mobilize 100, maybe we will be stronger than them. So it escalated and said, no, the issue is not yet the University of Zimbabwe, it's with the government. Let's go into town, into the streets. Let's go to African Square, So that's how it's. So with it also meeting more comrades, other experienced ones, and sharing ideas. I think the consciousness
you've now answered my next question. Sanda Kufunza. I mean, who does that? You are. It's like you're interviewing yourself here. I was about to ask you about student politics impacts national politics, and now you've already jumped into it.
No, I have an answer for that.
Okay.
We arrived at the University of Zimbabwe, and when we took charge of the students' union there, I was in my first year, but we had this belief that the University of Zimbabwe was a state within a state, that outside forces have nothing to do with what happens on campus. So when we saw riot police coming, when we had the demonstration and saw riot police coming, we actually felt that they are provoking us because we run ourselves here, we are in charge here. So it sort of now made us see that our fight is now bigger. There are outside forces which are interfering. Let's go.
So now we're coming out as well.
Let's go into the street. Yeah, so that's how we started seeing that we need to also go out. And also issues to do with, like the issue of school fees. The administration already charges and raises fees, but then the ones who had the duty, the sole purpose to actually provide an enabling economy where people can access education freely and adequately, where even after graduation we can get jobs, where even if we wanted to access loans. Because growing up, I thought I want to go to college to earn my loans. I was getting my own apartment in town. Maybe I can, we were watching Kama movies, my classical high school movies. So we thought it would be like being told I'll be, the likes of
the dream. But when I go to Harare.
Yeah, so when I came to I saw the problem was not just from the village. It was not within the village, it was not within Mashwing.
No.
It's in Harare, and it's in Harare way. If we resolve the Harare question, we would have resolved the village question. If we resolve the Harare question, we would have resolved the Mashwing question.
Okay.
If we resolve the Harare problems, would have dealt with all the national problems.
All right. So comrade, not that I'm not trying to say that you're old, but you've been around for a minute. So looking back, if you were to see 18-year-old Mako, what advice would you give him? Would you tell him, boys is not going to or you're going to tell him, no, push harder. Aluta continue.
Actually, if I'm seeing an 18-year-old Mako again coming into Harare, I believe I could have, done more, because I had a certain level of, I would rather say naivete. And I thought that politicians, I used to think that government ministers, I used to think that the president and members of parliament, I used to think that they are there to save people, they are there for the public good. I used to think that they are there to ensure that we all have better lives, that the police force is there to ensure that there's justice. At 18 years, I used to. I'm telling you, because I used to believe that if I face a problem, I should actually run to the invest security. Green bombers. Those people against trained security guys. They were proper NPFs. So when I saw that, no, they betrayed my trust. Even the police, even the government, the ministers, they betrayed my trust. So I believe I could have fought harder. And also one thing that kept me going was I've never been bullied. And I took it as bullying when they arrested me. I took it as bullying, and I was committed to fight bullying even at a very young age. So I thought this was bullying. So I'm happy actually with all the decisions that I made. Of course, I paid the consequences. Like I ended up having to, attend more court cases than the exams that I wrote at the University of Zimbabwe. Like, remember, I came to Harare for education, but I ended up, attending court cases more than I attended the exam rooms. Yeah, I attended exams. I ended up, getting to see the west side of Zimbabwe, the prisons, and it was at a very young age in the beginning. I got into numerous prisons, numerous provinces, and it's a all thing that is because of the way that I think, but it's a necessary price to pay, because if you are fighting for an idea that you believe in, that you believe it's even bigger than you, cause that is bigger than you, it tends to have less pain on the individual, because you know that what I'm doing is my bit contribution to, little contributions to humanity, little contributions to Zimbabwe, little contributions to the way we survive. And sometimes it always paid dividends. But some of the demonstrations that we did, I can tell you, I would get suspended or arrested. But it allowed students to really write exams.
All right, so I'm moving on from after that. You're an activist, right? How do you and your fellow activists survive? How do you pay your bills, responsibilities? Because you're always doing these flash mobs. Do you have other jobs? Do you have jobs besides the activism? Or can't work out? That's where you get your money. Guys. Because I didn't like
to tell you the truth, Magi, activism is taxing, like really taxing. How, for example, for my own personal survival, for my safety, I need to have at least 5, places where I stay, place of residence, so that I would not be confined to one just place. For myself, for my life, I have to do so. Number one, apart from, because activism is not like an occupation where I can say a full-time occupation I'm getting paid. There are many ways that I raise my bills. Like number one, I do consultants, research consultants. I studied psychology. I'm a psychologist by study. Although I was then expelled 2 weeks from my final exams, but in terms of good come student mimi, basa kwenye mine research muda kuitirwa. Yeah,
Oh.
Then I also do part-time. Yeah, I also do like it's small scale, agricultural projects like poultry and the likes. So if you can have to talk about, yeah. Hello.
Ati muri kupuwa munda ere?
Munda shamari pakati pandinotoshandisa kwana mudhara kune munda ka.
Antu amusati mapuwa ndosaka muita noi.
No, munda tichatora because in the history of our people's struggles, it's got to land is the ultimate goal, and the land, our generation is going to get land.
Going back to Nemangu Makomborero, you like Occupy Unity Square. Some of them have become like full-time politicians, whereas some of them have just disappeared. Now, people make noise. The people will make noise one moment and then also want to see what happens. What's your end game, you personally, and what do you say about this people just go see? And then the fight is just over for them.
There are many contradictions, that happens. For example, activism, when you do something that is as risky as confronting a ruthless dictatorship, there are many things that influence or either motivate or demotivate, encourage or divert. Things to do with like even social setup. Some are married, some have relatives who can actually say no, you put us in danger. Others will actually.
But are you the same person that you'd be fighting for it initially?
You know what people do? People, Magi. I think also I blame ourselves more. We do not raise, it's critical number. The first thing that we have to do, that a revolutionary must do, is to raise consciousness and awareness among the people. Once that is achieved, because you cannot mobilize a sleeping people around revolutionary goals. You can't mobilize an unconscious people for freedom. Because number one, they think it maybe preserved for other people. Number one. Then number two, they can actually believe that maybe people are get paid by someone to do this. Number three, they actually say, yes, it must be done, but not by you, my brother, not by you, my sister. Let others do it. And actually, you can hear someone say, some people is saying, you are doing that, you are being used, yet you have nothing. You are being used.
Okay, so let's be honest here. Who just do this activism for the payday, and then once the payday comes over,
for the payday, no. Payday from who? Who can pay someone to risk their life?
Agenda.
Agenda, like what agenda? Because if you check some of the things that we are fighting for, there is no person who can have like personal interest agenda. We need a police force that doesn't beat up people. Because it's something that, and it must be, I think, a national duty for every citizen. Because imagine you see a 20-year-old policeman beating up a 52-year-old grandmother. You see a middle-aged magistrate condemning victims of abduction and torture to prison. Yet she's a mother. There's something wrong within our society, within our fabric. We have been turned by the system, but NPF into some kinds of zombies. So it's something that needs consciousness first. Then people.
But it's
no one can really say.
Is it working? Is it working though? This activity that you're doing, like we saw, for example, you logged Impala and staged flash demos time and time again, and at their offices. Does it work? And now the owner for Impala passed away. And are you still going to continue with this with the issue of Impala or Yafaya Kaloda? Sorry, is it too soon?
Magi, when we logged Impala, I'm sure you saw the very next day Takuzwa Ngadzolo was released for.
Sorry, can you start again?
So When we locked Imbala, the very next day, Taguzo was granted bail, so it worked. You see, when we went at the Minister of Justice offices, Job Scholar, within very few minutes, they granted him bail. Okay, yeah, we have met many results. I can give you, for example, like the day after we locked Imbala, it pressurized them and they released Takuzo on bail the very next day. Then sufficed that this issue, the Imbala must fall campaign was not, that Mr. Dondo must fall. It was against Imbala, the company, because they are the ones, they still have the records. So we are actually going on them. It's just that for a moment we had many pressing issues that were happening and we were mobilizing. But Imbala, if they don't provide the answers, because we know that those records, they did not go with Mr. Dondo to his grave. Those records, they are within the company.
So you're still going to
not
continue.
Against me, but we were against the company. We're not. We are still going.
All right. So we've come to the last part of the interview, comrade. This is the part that I love the most. I enjoy this part here. So we'll call it the rapid fire session. I'll give you two options, option A, option B, and you have to pick one without thinking about it. Don't overthink. Are you ready? Yeah. So, Edife or Edita?
Yeah.
Don't think. Why are you thinking? Stop thinking. Edita. Jam Fraser or Winkity?
Winkity.
Sorry.
Winkity.
Dagi or Khupe?
But it's not fair.
Dagi or Khupe, don't think.
Khupe. Khupe.
Linda Masara or Joanna Mamumbe?
Joanna Mamumbe.
Why?
She's a virtuous person.
Bye-bye. See you at the next flash demonstration. Thank you so much for joining us. Hey, thank you so much.
Okay, sure.